Are you waiting for me?
You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Hey, welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate you guys coming by and being part of the show today. We're always so thankful for our audience because you guys are always so cute and wonderful and delectable. And I don't know, I'm just really trying to butter my audience up this morning because, you know, we just love you guys. Remember, Chris Voss Show is the family that loves you but doesn't judge you. At least not as harshly as your mom does. Now go clean your room. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Give us that 5-star review over the iTunes there. We got the most loveliest reviews, and they're so nice. Sometimes I sit and weep. They're so loving and wonderful. So make one up there. Put one up if you would. We certainly appreciate it. YouTube.com, Goodreads.com/Chris Voss. See the big LinkedIn newsletter, all the stuff we're doing on LinkedIn. Lots of new LinkedIn stuff. Great. That's like the last ditch with all the stuff that's going on Twitter and stuff right now, and Facebook seems to be suspending. A friend of mine on Facebook got suspended for saying happy birthday to somebody the other day. So the bots are crazy over there. So go see what we're doing on LinkedIn and also on TikTok. TikTok seems to be the place everyone's at now, so we're trying to master that. Today we have an amazing author on the show. She's the author of the book called Unreported. Domestic abuse is an unreported crime, and learning to live L.I.V.E. Free is a journey. We'll find out what that's about. Miss Vera Mahajan is on the show with us today. Did I get your name correct, Vera?
Yes, you did. Correctly pronounced. Yes.
It's always good. We don't like to butcher names on the show. That's always bad business, and we like everyone to get represented really well. So she is an inspirational author, speaker, and passionate advocate for the eradication of domestic abuse and empowering women. She's an advocate for joyful living through peaceful dispute resolution. Her book talks about domestic abuse awareness and getting rid of abuse from your life for good. I believe she believes that we all deserve a happy and absolutely free life on our own terms. And it's definitely important. No one needs to be abused. Welcome to the show, Vera. How are you?
I am very good. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. We certainly appreciate having you on the show. Give us your .coms or wherever you want people to look you up on the interwebs, please.
You can just look me up on my name website, Vera, VEERA, Mahajan, MAHAJAN.com.
There you go.
And you can find me on Instagram, full name at Vera Mahajan, Facebook, full name at Vera Mahajan. And you'll find me on LinkedIn. I'm not that big on Twitter. Once in a while, I do post something there. But these three, I kind of keep pretty active.
Twitter's kind of going some crazy places. So I've kind of been like over on LinkedIn doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And we have our big LinkedIn newsletter over there. We have a big 130,000 group. We have the LinkedIn newsletter that goes out on weekdays. And, you know, it's just so much more professional over there, too. But Facebook, we have 5 Facebook groups or 3. Was it 2 pages, 3 Facebook groups? Facebook seems to be doing okay, but they just laid off a bunch of people, and I've gotten suspended over just telling 2 jokes that were just like we did a joke about the Netflix Jeffrey Dahmer show, and evidently you can't do jokes about serial killers anymore. I guess that's something you can't do. So it's kind of crazy out there, so we're just loving our LinkedIn stuff, and it's good.
I think Instagram is doing similar things. They're just taking people off their verified stuff.
Yeah, it's weird. So anyway, it's good to have you on the show. Well, give us an idea. What motivated you to write this book?
What motivated me? Because I hate to call myself that, but that's what I feel, that I'm an expert on domestic abuse. I lived as a child in domestic abuse. And now that I think back, that's what kind of grooms you. When you live that, you think that's a normal.
Yeah.
And then you find a little bit better, and then that's what I thought my husband was. He was at least not as bad as my dad, because my
Wow.
dad was very physically abusive to my mom mostly and my older brother,
Wow.
but we all got a little bit out of it, you know, not out of it, but we all got abused, but not as bad as my mom and my older brother.
Hmm.
And then you just kind of get used to standing by the wall and watching your mom being yelled at or hit or whatever. And then when you think your husband is a little bit better, who may turn into eventually the same, you're groomed into that, right?
Yeah.
And you have learned how to accept it and how to live in it. So that's what I'm doing right now. And after I anyway, you are saying how what motivated me, because I did not want that to go from my mother's generation to me and then to my children.
Hmm.
So I made sure, even though my ex also started, my kid's dad started to be very abusive and was abusive as the years went by, and I lived there because I knew it was going to be most worse if I had to leave, because then you get into custody battle, and
Yeah.
he was threatening me on that he will take my children away, and custody battles. Plus I was always afraid that he's going to go get married again, which he did even after I waited 23 years, very quickly. But then who's going to protect my kids when they're not with me? At
Yeah.
least I was protecting them, and at least we were together. And then at least he was gone a lot. We had business and they were traveling. He had traveling kind of, business. So the thing is, we find different names, small names for the big problems, so we can survive them, so we can kind of say, oh, he's just angry, he just drinks, he just does that, he just does that. And then, but if we give it a bigger name, then it's abuse and you not should not be taking it. So that's what the message I'm trying to give to people and educate women and families, that what happens to the wives, to the whole family. My husband's not happy either. He may
Hmm.
be abusive, but he's not happy, right? If we find a way to live a happier life and more peaceful life, then it's good for everybody. But otherwise, it is if you've tried everything, and I'm not saying just first time good, just go get a divorce, right? You have
Hmm.
to try to make it work, especially if you have children.
Yeah.
But if you've tried, you should not be in abuse. Then you have to leave.
That's
So
true.
that's what I'm educating. But I mean, to just leave, a lot of women say, what will I do? How will I do? How will I take care of the kids? You and that's what I'm trying to teach in this book also. Domestic abuse awareness, first of all, that are you living in abuse? That's why I called it unreported crime. Nobody talks about it. People just like, oh, don't wash whatever you call dirty laundry, put it out to people to see, keep it behind closed doors, we don't know what's happening, it takes two to fight or two to do this or that. No, sometimes it's just one way abuse and the other one is just taking. Marriage is a compromise. If it's a compromise back and forth, yes, but if it's one person only getting and the other person only giving, so all these things I'm explaining in that what changes it into abuse
Yeah.
and how to get out of it. And if you do decide to get out of it, that was my big thing when I was going through divorce.
Hmm.
My lawyer would say, I'm not your therapist, go talk to her. And I'm like already crying here in the middle of the story. And I was like, oh, I have to wait for an appointment to go to the therapist. And therapist said, well, I can't give you legal advice. You got to go talk to the lawyer. I'm running back and forth, paying $400 here, $500 here,
Yeah.
per hour. They're not cheap and they don't do what when you're in the middle of it. And then the hour ends when you're like in the middle of the story.
Yeah.
So all those things that they weren't explaining, I'm explaining in this. So this little book is made like that on purpose, so
Hmm.
everybody can read. And even if it's not so expensive, it's
Hmm.
small, you can read, get enough information, keep it for, a guidebook, or just give it to somebody. Easy gift. If you know someone is going through that, just give it to them. Read it and pass it on.
Hmm.
And that's the message I'm trying to pass on to as many people as I can. I was doing mediations, which you mentioned in the beginning. I am a trained mediator from Pepperdine University at their law school.
Hmm.
And I was teaching at schools, and I was teaching and doing mediations for people to resolve conflicts, to keep you out of courts, because that way you're making decisions for yourself. And I was
Hmm.
teaching at school to teach children from start. And the principal said I was able to reduce violence and conflicts by 75%.
Wow, that's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. You do that as well. I was looking at your website here, where you work with kids who get bullied in school and
Yes,
playgrounds,
yes,
and
yeah,
help them with your communication coaching
yes.
and mediator. Uh, Tell me this. One thing a lot of people don't realize is I'm asking you to verify this, but a lot of people don't realize that the imprint that we get from our parents and the relationship that we see our parents have not only with us but with each other, it gets imprinted onto us, and we
Oh,
expect that sort of, we go, okay, this is what a relationship is. And if
mhm.
that relationship with your parents is abusive, like you saw between your mother and your father, or between the child, then we tend to seek out sort of people that replicate that. And we're
Yeah.
kind of, I heard psychologists say one time that we do that because we're trying to resolve and heal that wound, and we think that we can take the same sort of situation, the same sort of people, the same stresses and problems, and that we can fix them where our parents couldn't. And really the problem is the toxicity of whatever sort of person or broken people those folks are. The situation can't work, and so you're just replicating a failed model, and
Oh, yeah, yeah,
trying to reconcile it.
yeah.
And by it's a guaranteed fail. So it's interesting to me how people go through that process, and they're trying to, like I said, reconcile that. And did you find that's the same thing with people in abuse
Oh,
situations?
that's one side of the story, because
Hmm.
psychologically, without knowing, subconsciously, we just feel a little bit safer because that's what we know,
Yeah,
right?
we feel that safe, huh?
Yeah, we know
Yeah.
how to deal with it. We've dealt with this all with our lives. So we know the pattern. We know. So that's another thing that in my speaking and when I'm speaking to people either on stage or in groups, that if our children don't even know what a good normal is,
Hmm.
they're going to accept abuse as a bad normal. But
Hmm.
at least it's normal, something they know what to do with, right?
Hmm.
So we have to teach the children. That's why I was teaching mediations at school. So if they know how to resolve conflicts, children started to say, even though I was going there twice a week because they don't need a mediator every day, children learned how to wait for me to come there. They said, I don't want to fight. I
Hmm.
want to have a mediation. And they were willing. Just in that, when you make space, when you're angry and you're not shouting, yelling, throwing things at each other, that lesson itself gives you a lot of things resolved by then. The anger is gone. You don't want to kill somebody. You don't want to hurt somebody, right? And the
Hmm.
same thing with at home. If we start showing children by our relationship, husband, wife, or parents, or our friends, and with children, what a good normal is. How should somebody be treated? Like I, as a child, I could be yelled at for laughing at a joke on TV just because they understood it was a mixed message or whatever, like they say, double meanings. And if I laughed, I understood it's not my fault. It's a good thing I'm understanding, right? But I
Hmm.
could get yelled at that. And I
Wow.
was told I couldn't do this. I wanted to be a doctor. Oh, you're too skinny. You're too short to be a lawyer. And so all education was picked for me. My father was literally used to tell me, focus on learning how to make round chapatis, the bread,
Hmm.
pita bread. Otherwise, who's going to marry you? That was like if my, and that was the end of me. I'm crying and I'm like doing homework. He won't let me do it. And then he would laugh at me or get upset at me for that. Again, now she's not cooking or studying. Now she's just upset. But then who did that? You know, he would just say things like that. Go make proper rotis. Otherwise, who's going to marry you? And so that was more important, education, what he thought was right. So our dreams, I remember that I wanted to learn gymnastic or learn music. It was literally like 0%. I couldn't do it.
Hmm.
I only was allowed to do what I was told. And it happens now. People tell you or they make you feel bad about what you want to do, so your dreams just die inside, and
Hmm.
you're just living a life for either making money or having a house or having whatever, a regular life, which is not a happy life. You go to
Definitely.
work not to be happy. So for the rest of your life, that's not good, right?
It's not good at all. Not
We're
good at
not
all.
encouraging children and understanding what do they want to do and support them in that. And especially on top of that, girls are controlled even more. They're prepared to be, even here, I see it's not just India. And my book, most of the interviews are American girls
Yeah.
and some men too. And I mean, there is a reverse abuse. I don't want to say that it's all men abusive and all women are victims. It
Mhm.
does happen the other way too. But of
Yeah.
course, for the sake of writing, instead of saying he, she all the time, I used, because mostly it's men perpetrators. So I used he for perpetrator and she for victim. But anybody who's in abuse, and then I have a foolproof uh, test to
Mhm.
see if you are in abuse, which is, I call it a garage door test.
Oh,
Anybody
wow.
who's listening, please think about it. I have it in the book too. If you are in your home, right, and your husband, wife, partner, whoever is gone out, again, I'm going to say mostly husbands, if they come home late and you're doing whatever, if when the garage door opens, what are you feeling?
Mhm.
Are you feeling scared, like, oh my God, now what? Or are you excited about it, right? If you're happy when your husband, your partner comes home, you're good. You know, ups and downs are everywhere, and that's normal. You discuss, you may be upset about something, and that's fine. But if you are afraid that that person is coming home, that is not a good relationship.
That's true. That's true. I've been on the side of abusive girlfriends. One of my girlfriends was an alcoholic, and there were times where I was having to, cross my arms to cover myself while she was punching at me
Oh, wow.
and would corner me in room and I mean it didn't happen often, but when she would get drunk, she was one of those people that when they would get drunk, they would become a different person
Yeah.
and they become instead of being a fun person when most of us drink, she become very angry. She would literally physically change,
Yeah.
physiology change, and you'd be like, "Ooh, what?" It's like very much Dr. Jekyll,
What
Mr.
do you
Hyde.
do now?
And,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of men take abuse. In fact, a lot of abuse gets away with men where women, we seem to allow women to hit us because women don't punch as hard as men, and I see a lot of guys get hit, and I'm just like, wow,
Really?
dude, I wouldn't
Mm.
tolerate that at all. And we let a
But
lot of
you
that
just
slide.
said you did.
Yeah, I mean, we let a lot of that slide.
Yeah.
But no, it's good to
But
recognize abuse. Like you say, I've been in relationships where, yeah, when you hear the garage door open, you're like,
yeah,
you
but
start getting
like
weird.
women don't talk about it for many
Mhm,
reasons, like fear and all. But men, it's
mhm.
actually worse when they are in abuse, are the victims, because then they are very embarrassed, very
Yeah,
ashamed.
we don't speak up about it
Yeah,
because it's
because
it's
you're like, I'm a
very,
big man. How am I
yeah,
getting beat by this
yeah.
little girl?
Yeah,
But they
I've
do.
I've I've been in domestic court and watched the is it called the dais or whatever the court thing go by. One time I was appealing a speeding ticket. BMWs, I go a little too fast, and so I tend to appeal the speeding tickets to see if I can get out of them as much as I can. I'm a lawyer at heart, but so one time they put me in domestic court for the appeal because
Mhm,
they just need to have a court to hear it, and
mhm,
they usually pass it around. So I ended up in domestic court at the end of the docket because my name's Voss, and so I had
mhm,
to sit there for hours and watch domestic court,
mhm.
and it was extraordinary. And I mean, I think about 25% that came through were men, and
Oh,
you could
really?
see the shame on their face. You could
Oh
see
my God.
the guilt, but
Mhm.
they bring in the wife or girlfriend in an orange jumpsuit, and you just be like, wow.
Yeah,
And and be like some skinny little guy and some kind of
yeah,
burly woman, and yeah, you'd hear the stories, but it goes both ways on both sides,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
but there needs to be a way to fix that, and
Oh my
it's
God.
good that people have your book as a resource. Now in the
Yeah.
title, you have something called Live, L dot I dot
Yes,
E dot
that
E dot.
actually was my original cover. I can show you that too. I changed that. Just a second.
Okay. Now, does the Live acronym, does that
It's the same thing. This
does
was
it
my original cover.
okay.
That's probably what you found
Yeah.
on Amazon. This is also on Amazon, updated.
Okay. There you go.
Because with the unreported, sometimes it was hard to explain to people what's unreported. Even
Okay.
I'm also making a film, but you can explain more in the film with the
Okay.
same title. And then I had learning to live with as a journey, because that was, I wrote right after my divorce, and I was really by the time I did, I was very emotional. And then I started realizing that I have to explain what it is. It's about domestic abuse. So I changed the
Hmm.
cover. Book is the same. So it's
Okay.
domestic abuse and it's an unreported crime. So I tried to make it more clear and learn how to end it, right? This is
Yeah.
also on Amazon.
Does
And
the live stand for something then?
yes, yes, I was going
Okay.
to tell you that.
Okay.
Live is how I live my life now. By the letters, I've used the letters to remind me every day that I need to live my life and my terms and be empowered and
Hmm.
not be afraid. The main thing is not be afraid of anybody, right? It's my life and I'm allowed to, I'm deserved to live. So L stands for loving myself, right? If you remember these four letters,
Hmm.
L for loving myself, I for insisting on freedom. You cannot be like you were saying, it happens not very often, but that abuse comes sometimes. So that freedom has to be all the time,
Hmm.
not sometimes and not 25 or not even 75 or 80% of the time. It has to be 100% of the time, right? You should
Yeah.
always feel free in your home. You can't be living with someone who scares you either by yelling or even if they pounce on the table, they're telling you that next time it could be you punching the walls, and or whatever. They're punching a hole in the wall, they're telling you next time it could be you, and then it will be you one day,
Yeah.
so that fear should never be there, and the freedom to just live your life should be all the time 100%. So insisting on freedom. And then V is for victory over victim syndrome. Instead of keep blaming or complaining that, oh my god, he hurt me, she hurt me, what are you doing to not make that happen? Set your boundaries. Make sure the other person knows they are not allowed to cross those boundaries. You are, and otherwise too, if in a circle of abuse, there's a perpetrator and there's a victim, right?
Hmm.
If you remove one perpetrator, somebody else will come if you remain the victim,
Hmm.
right? You have to remove yourself as being the victim. So you stop saying, oh, he hurt me. If somebody, there's a simple example. If somebody, let's say, I mean, it's kind of gruesome. If somebody knives you in your stomach, right?
Yeah.
And you say, and now you're curing, they knifed you and they're gone. And you're walking around telling people, knifed me, he knifed me, he knifed me. You're bleeding, that person's gone. Who's doing that now? Who's putting the knife in you now?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got to stop doing that and start putting some healthy boundaries around you and loving yourself, right from start. If you love yourself enough, then we won't be so kind of sad to want not feel whole without someone else loving us or
Hmm.
someone else hurting us. So we're loving ourselves, insisting on freedom. We are not anybody's victim, not just removing one perpetrator. Like when I got divorced, I literally told everybody divorced. My family was not supportive of me, my mom, dad, my brothers, because of the culture. They were like upset at me for divorcing. So
Oh
I had to
wow.
divorce everybody. I'm like, I am leaving. I moved from Michigan to California. And I told them, I've already divorced him. I'm moving because of you. I need to get rid
Wow.
of all of you who are just being mean to me, you know? So you have to not be anybody's victim. Today, I feel so empowered. No, I'm nobody's victim. So
Hmm.
that's where you have to be. And then, of course, the E is for empowered living. You have to remember this is my life and I've got to make something. Like now I wake up and I'm like, okay, whatever I want to do, there's nobody pulling me down. I can
True.
take chances, I can win, I can fail, I can drop, I can get up, but nobody's pushing me down. Nobody's saying, oh, really? No, not do that. I moved to California and when I was younger, I never did a pageant, right? Here I was
Hmm.
divorced and I had 20-some-year-old two sons. And I come here and I went to a fashion show, just watching a fashion show. And there's another Indian newspaper. They started taking pictures of me, one of their photographers. And I'm like, why is he doing that? And then he sent me the picture. He said, oh, this just looks so beautiful. I'm going to send you pictures. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I mean, he was official. He gave me his card and all that stuff. And then they nominated me to run for the pageant, Asian pageant. And the only reason agreed to do is because for the first time I looked around and said, I don't have to ask anybody. Okay, I'll do this. And it was such an amazing experience. And
Hmm.
luckily, I also won Miss Asia California contest.
Oh,
But
there you go.
yeah, but it was more, even till now, I don't care about that. It was just that amazing experience that I don't have to ask anybody. And I had
Yeah.
the time. I'm not making some stupid choices for myself. I'm making
Hmm.
good choices,
Hmm.
which we have to do. And that's what we are supposed to be taught and
Hmm.
encouraged, how to think and how to plan and dream. And yes, figure out how to get those dreams instead of, oh, really? It's not good. Really? How are you going to do this? And then our dreams keep getting shelved and keep getting shelved. Then we stop dreaming because we're afraid of dreaming.
Hmm.
Then we just do whatever little thing somebody says, this seems okay. You know,
Yeah.
like, I was told do computer science and a math, and I did that. And but the day I graduated, I knew I didn't want to be in front of the computer for 10 hours a day
Yeah.
because I'm a people person. I like
Yeah.
talking to people.
Definitely
And
makes all the difference.
oh my God, at the end of those 4 or 5 years, because I was studying in India, I was doing my math, science, and all that, chemistry. I was good, but I was told what to do. And then I moved here and I was like, computer science is big. I did that. But after all that, I graduated. I didn't want to do that. You know?
There you go. There you
So,
go. Coming in from LinkedIn, we've got a thing here. Justin Lancaster, thanks for chiming in. I have PTSD from long time and extreme abuse from ex-wife, which I feel now in the garage door test when a new wife
yes.
comes home.
Yeah.
So he loves that idea of the garage door test.
Right.
There really is a thing. I'm going to
Mhm.
start. I'm going to start garage door testing while my dates.
Almost anybody I have asked, it has made sense to them.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. I remember, the extreme case was my alcoholic girlfriend. She was a wonderful gal when she wasn't drinking. She had an addiction and a genetic, disposition that she gotten from her father, and it was very sad. She ended up dying of alcohol abuse, and but when I would hear the garage door open, I mean, it was like, oh God,
Like,
well,
oh
I
my
don't know what
God.
we're.
Yes.
Sometimes it was me coming home and opening the garage door.
What am I going
Going,
into? Same
going,
thing,
oh, is
right?
she sober? Is
Yeah.
she,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the after I
Yeah.
moved her out of the house for 2 years, I found vodka bottles hidden all over the house.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it was a crazy time. But no one needs to live in an abusive situation,
Mm,
and people need to identify abuse. I'm sure your
yeah.
book helps people. Am I in an abusive situation? There's some people that they're very toxic, and they cause a lot of situations. They pick
Oh yeah.
fights. They don't
Yeah.
understand that they're creating an environment
Hmm.
where they end up creating fights and arguments and stuff like that. They end up creating drama. Do you help identify people if they're the one being the toxic person in the relationship that's causing abuse? I've had some people that they will just pick at you and drive at you and pick at you and argue with
Yeah,
you and
yeah,
screw with you and do everything to set you off, and their whole thing is to try and set you off for whatever their sort of toxic thing they learned from their parents.
yeah.
Do you teach people that and help them identify if maybe they're the problem?
Yes, yes. In the one lady that I was interviewing for the book, and I'll tell you the story a little bit, backstory. The husband's family was always fighting, right?
Hmm.
And the wife's family wasn't, and they got married. So the husband, even though they were fighting, now the younger couple, but
Hmm.
he was used to it, right? The old pattern that we were talking about, for him, it was no big deal. His parents were married 50 years, they were still fighting, and everything's fine. They still go to parties together, family gatherings. And the woman, she became really angry and abusive
Hmm.
towards him because he was used to it, so it was no big deal for him, so he would just take it, right?
Wow.
And now she was dishing it. And she at one time told him that because now they were married like 4 or 5 years, and that he wanted kids, and she says, I will never have kids with you because I don't want the chance or the thought that they could turn out like you. I mean, that
Wow.
is horribly abusive thing for someone to hear. Okay, I'm not going to have children for one,
Hmm.
and the reason is because she thinks they could turn out like me, so I'm that bad, right?
Wow.
So, and she thought she was in abuse. So when I was interviewing so many people, she was one of the ladies I was interviewing. And then she said, maybe I'm the abuser because I have said so many things and done so many things. He just sits and takes it. He's just
Hmm.
like a quiet person who doesn't know any better. He just
Yeah.
grew up in this bad thing. And for him, it's no big deal. You fight and you're together again. You
Yeah.
fight and you go to the church again. You go and
Mm.
fight and you go shopping, movies, or whatever, right? But
Yeah.
he didn't know any better, but he was still the innocent, vulnerable person. And
Yeah.
she became abusive. And then she actually told me that this was yeah. And my physical therapist, he bought a book from me, and then he came back and bought more books for his guy friends. And he says, now I know why my wife hates me, why she's always angry at me.
Yeah.
So yeah, read my book, you will
It's
see the signs.
the one thing that's really that's really come home to me over the years is the shaping of that, like we mentioned before, the shaping of that childhood relationship and what you learn from your parents. And if your parents are toxic and they have a toxic relationship, you're going to go looking for those sort of same replications in your partners. And then you end up in the same situation. You're like, why is my relationship with my partner the same as, the craziness I grew up in? And like you
Yeah,
said, there's a safety there. And
yeah,
it's a really weird sort of sick safety because
yeah,
it's abuse, but you're like, this is all I know. So
mhm,
this is what is supposed to
yeah,
be a healthy relationship to me.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I really wish more parents were educated, and they really
mhm,
should. I mean, I believe parents should go to college for a few years before they have kids and learn to be good parents and maybe work out some of their issues beforehand,
mhm,
because
mhm, mhm.
they imprint that on the children, and then the children go forth. And if you're a father, your relationship with your daughter is incredibly important because you're showing her what a man is like,
Yeah,
and a good or bad man is like.
yeah, yeah,
If you're setting her up for failure, you're teaching her, that men bail you out of all your problems.
yeah,
Same thing with a mother and a daughter and a son. That
mhm,
relationship between them, and whether it's healthy or toxic, it sets the tone for the women
yeah,
he chooses throughout his life.
yeah,
Men are stoic. What we learned that when women get too much in their emotions, and sometimes it can get abusive or verbally abusive, we just shut down. And we've learned that if we engage, it just makes things worse. And so a lot of times we shut down, we give women time to go figure out what's upsetting them, and resolve it and work out their
yeah.
feelings.
It never worked.
And so yeah, so usually we shut down, and that's kind of our thing that we've kind of learned.
Yeah,
Then
but there's a healthy way to even shut down. You have to
mhm,
still verbalize.
yeah,
I'm going to let you do what you have to do. I'm going to go for a walk.
mm,
So they have to have boundaries. They have to know that this is his boundary. He's not
yeah,
just ignoring me.
yeah,
He's literally giving me time to do whatever I have to do. Same thing like with men. If they start yelling at you, you have to say no.
yeah.
Stop. Like somebody told me that, oh, most people will just punch with the roll. They say, are you even hearing you? Punch with, or roll with the punches? I'm
Yeah,
like, I am nobody's punching bag.
yeah. That
Don't
doesn't
even think
sound
about
healthy
it.
at all.
Not happening. Don't even say that. I mean, people say stuff, but they don't hear what they say.
Mhm.
Why would I roll with anybody's punches? They
Yeah,
thought it was like no big deal. Oh, I'm better than most men. I don't want better than most men. I want a good man. You know,
yeah,
if nine are bad and you were a little bit better,
mhm,
that doesn't mean you're good,
yeah.
right?
Boundaries are so important. I mean,
Yeah,
people need to learn to set them and hold them and say like, no, this is we're not doing this, and
yeah,
make sure that boundaries are there and rules in your relationship,
yes, yes.
because things could get out of hand. And if you
We
let
that
certain people get
Yeah.
away with stuff, they become like children. They just want to keep pushing those
Yeah,
boundaries.
because once you let them yell at you or hit you or whatever it is,
Hmm.
and you don't do anything about it, don't
Hmm.
set boundaries, don't have any consequences, or don't shut them down, you're pretty much giving them permission for the next time. And if it
Exactly.
happens many times, now it's become a normal.
Hmm.
When you really get tired of it, sick of it, like had it, and now you're screaming or calling the police or whatever, the other person is completely confused. Like,
Yeah.
what happened? We were fine. Literally, my ex used to say, we're fine. We're in the middle of the divorce, like almost to the end of the divorce. And he's still asking me to stay. I'm like, okay, what will be different? Nothing. We're fine. I'm like, no, we're not fine. There's a reason I'm leaving. What? There's not fine. He didn't get it.
Yeah.
The word abuse was very painful to him because he didn't think he was abusive, because everything that he was doing was just normal to him, and it was gradually growing, you
Hmm.
know? And then it got so bad and it was getting so bad, he didn't even see it. The garage door test I was talking to you, I could sit on the floor and just tell him to just stop. I can't breathe. He won't stop. He didn't know how to
Yeah.
stop. He had
Did
to
he
get
grow
the
up with a
whole
lot of
poison.
abuse? Did he grow up with a lot of abuse
Well,
in
he
his
was very
childhood?
tight-lipped about his family.
Oh,
He
really?
won't talk about it.
That's probably a bad
Yeah,
sign then.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was like
Mm.
everything. I was great. My family was great. It
One
was.
thing I've one thing I've learned in dating and relationships is when I date people, one of the first things I do is I inquire roundabout. I try not to make it direct, but I inquire number one what a woman's relationship is with her father and what her relationship was growing up. For women, it's asking what their relationship was with their mother. Because I've seen mother abandonment issues with
Mhm.
sons. I've seen, I've experienced, or not experienced, but I've seen it with my friends where I'm like, your mother didn't hug you enough. That's kind of the joke I use. Or,
Or
and
baby
your
you too
your
much.
dad didn't hug you enough. you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it makes a difference and it sets a tone for all of our future relationships.
Mhm.
What in the book haven't we touched on, and or the work that you do as a coach and mediator?
Yeah, the mediation came after the book. So that's
Hmm.
kind of a different thing. This is about domestic abuse awareness and
Hmm.
knowing the signs and then what to do if you
Hmm.
have to leave. I have
Hmm.
all that in here, like what lawyers told me and what therapists told me, but not together. They weren't telling me to help me, but I was gathering this information. And then from talking to everybody else, there was becoming a pattern. Then when I stopped interviews and then I started writing the book, and then I made 6 characters out of that to give enough examples, and I'm one of them, so you guys can guess which one I am. But mediation is what I learned after, because I was like, okay, I'm out of it, right? But
Hmm.
then you still have this in you, but why did I have to go through this, and why did I have to go through this, why did my kids have to? That's always another layer of pain that people
Hmm.
live with, right? Even while they're in abuse or when they get out again, it's like, okay, thank God that I'm free. It's not happening now, but why did I have to go through it? So that's why I want to make my life have a meaning and help somebody else learn from my experience.
Hmm.
But then I learned uh, spiritual psychology to get kind of a base of making sense that I'm okay. And this is like a life curriculum, like you were saying earlier. You go out to learn what you are feeling, how to fix it, or how to not do it again, and how to make yourself whole. That's the relationship you want to look for. First, you have to be whole, then you find a whole person that you complete me is such a bad thing. Nobody completes anybody.
That's a
Then
good
you're
point. I like that
yeah.
point.
Then you're constantly trying to complete each other, but you're not even complete yourself. All
So
you
is it
want
better
is
to sit
to
down
be
and fix
complete you.
yourself first before you
Huh?
run around? Is it better to sit down and
Oh,
fix yourself first
oh,
before you?
totally,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah,
Otherwise, you're waiting for somebody else to make you happy. Nobody's going to make you
yeah,
happy if you're not happy.
yeah,
And you can try your hardest, and you're not going to make somebody else happy, because there's something else again is going to come out in them that makes them not happy, and you're constantly working on making them happy.
yeah.
You know. So
The big problem that people do is they just don't go to therapy or get
yeah,
help or read a book.
yeah,
I see all these people that do all this BS. They're like, "Well, I'm going to go do energy crystal healing." Okay, no, go to therapy or
yeah,
get a book and educate yourself. All
yes,
this if I just feel good, maybe everything will be okay.
yeah,
Maybe everyone else is the problem and it's not me. No, it's probably you. It's
yeah,
the mirror. Go look in the mirror. I noticed on your website, as we round out, you've got several different things here. You've got strategy calls people can do with you,
yeah. That's
mediation,
mediations and coaching. Yes,
mediation sessions, workshop, a
yeah.
3 month plan to empower a child so he or she becomes bully proof.
Yeah.
I love that sort of thing. I
That's
was,
what I was teaching in schools, I was telling you. And I
mhm,
want to have a course that I can give people that they can do it themselves, because I can't be everywhere like I can be in one school. So I can give you those tools so you can do your own mediations and teach your children how to resolve conflicts. So when they grow up, I'm hoping for the next generation, they know how to resolve conflicts. If they
mhm,
can be better husbands and wives, they can be better bosses, better teachers, wherever they are, better employees, co-workers, if they are not living in this victim syndrome, right? It's
yeah,
always somebody else's fault.
yeah,
And then you take some responsibility and also make a decision. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to fight. I'm not going to shoot you. I'm not going to call you to court. we're going to talk,
Hmm.
right? Be in that level place where I don't get too excited, but I don't also get, I mean, it'll help you save so many mental issues because then you don't have to go through depression. You don't have to go through
Hmm.
this overexcitement, go through drugs and actually gang fights, you know?
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
it's so important.
yeah. But I was
What?
telling you the trajectory. If you want me to finish that, I went through the spiritual psychology and then went to Pepperdine Law School to learn actual skills of mediation.
Mhm.
And now I put them together when I use when I do mediations or coaching.
There you go.
And yeah, so
We've
this
got
is
another comment here from, I believe, Daisy. Daisy, I hope I'm
crazy. Yes,
pronouncing your
beautiful.
correct rightly. You cannot expect that someone else is going to give you what you are unable to give yourself. That is so true.
Exactly. Same thing. Be whole yourself. Find a way to be happy first.
Yeah.
Then, like they say, when they say, I want to grow old with you want to have somebody that goes parallel with you in life. Like my ex and I, we were fine. We married so early. And in some ways, I don't blame him because we were so young. He grew differently. We did not grow together. He
Mhm.
grew here and I grew here, right? And that's why we just tried to stay together, right?
Yeah.
Because we were just growing differently. He had his own ways that didn't work with me. I stayed with the family and the kids and all that stuff. I was taking care of that while he was just going on his own tangent. And then it just wasn't, we were not growing together,
Mhm.
and then it's a conflict constant. And yeah, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So
It's hard
find
when you have
someone
kids.
where you're strong and they're strong, whole people that you can grow together.
There you
Yeah.
go. Well, your
Yeah.
message resonated with a lot of people today, and on the podcast, and it will help a lot of people. Anything more you want to plug out before we go?
Well, that's my message right now, that teach our girls, our young children first, that, while you're teaching them, you'll teach yourself also, but at least let's start from there. So our next generation feels more empowered and they
Mhm.
know what a bad normal is,
Yeah.
right? And what a good normal is. If they don't even know what a good normal, they're living in a bad normal, then they will keep doing what you're doing. There's no, chance of change. So, like, imagine if a girl knows that she's able to do anything, she's not stopped, she's not living in fear. And if she finds this person who tries to do the opposite, tries to insult her, abuse her, yell at her, she's going to say, what the hell? Get away from me. This is not normal. And that's how we need the same thing with our boys, right? They will also know that this is normal when they're taught not to take abuse, have some boundaries, and they'll know when they grow up relationships will be better. They'll won't have enough too many reasons to fight because they'll have their boundaries already. They won't let people cross those boundaries to hurt them,
Mhm.
and then they also know not to cross other people's boundaries, right?
Yep. A lot of men make that mistake. They just try to appease. We try and make everyone happy, and we deal with a lot being men going out in the world and fighting our battles, and we want to come home and have peace. And so we'll sell ourselves for peace. We'll be like, okay, whatever, just make her happy, whatever it takes, just make her happy. And not setting those boundaries is really important. I see a lot
Yeah,
of men that don't do that. I see a lot of that in my
yeah.
gaming community, because we'll spend hours on gaming and I'll hear the abuse going on in their house,
I-
the verbal abuse,
I'm
and
going
I'll
to
just be
tell
like,
all your friends, you
yeah.
will never make her happy. I
Hmm.
mean, just remember that, because you give her nine things, there's a 10 things she wants.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you'll never make her happy if that's your goal, because something else will get her attention and she'll want that. And if
Hmm.
she wants that from you, she's never going to be happy. But if she can be happy on her own, then she's as happy.
Yeah.
Then you enjoy that. Of course, you do nice things for each other, but then they're done out of just when you want to do. You want to be kind,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
not to make her happy. If it makes you happy to give, and if it brings joy to the group, but that should not be like the words you said, Ed, I'll do whatever it takes to make you happy.
Yeah.
You want to die to make her happy? Really? And people are doing that.
Some people, you give and you give and you give. Anyway, it's been wonderful to have you on the show. Thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
was amazing.
And people, another comment here from Daisy. It's about sharing happiness with someone as opposed to waiting for someone to make you happy. Definitely
Totally,
is. You have to be a
totally,
happy, complete person before you bring yourself to a
totally.
relationship, and it makes all the difference. If
Yeah,
you're waiting for someone else to complete you or fix you, it's
yeah,
the wrong thing to do. And please
yeah.
go to therapy, folks. Just stop. I was watching. Somebody sent me something where it's like, well, we're going to do energy and crystals to fix your relationship. Go to therapy, and
Yeah,
you know what, whether you think it's you or not, it's probably still you. So go
yeah.
fix you, and then you're not the problem. Go to therapy, see a psychologist,
Or you're
buy
part of the problem.
buy Vera's book. I just assume I'm always the problem and always
Yeah,
will be. So
victimhood is also part of the problem, you
yeah, this
know?
this culture we have where
Yeah,
everybody's a victim,
yeah,
and we have like victim competition where like I'm a bigger victim than you are. It's like, hey, why don't everybody shut up and go see a therapist at this point?
yeah. I mean,
I,
they have to know in a cycle of abuse, there's a perpetrator and a victim. You
yeah,
want to keep finding new perpetrators.
yeah. If
Remove
everyone's
the
the
victim.
yeah,
Remove the victim.
like I'll date girls, and it's like, oh, so the last 10 people in your relationship were all narcissists. You know that narcissists are maybe like 2 or 3% of the population, the diagnosed ones. So, if every guy you date is a narcissist, it's probably you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it's
yeah.
always interesting to me. So
You have to
anyway,
find the common factor is me. Okay.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's probably you. I'll see
yeah.
a lot of these TikTok dating. There's these gals who go onto TikTok and they complain about their dates. And it's really funny. They've been doing it for years. And you're
I
like,
think
you've been on
complaining
like hundreds
is
of dates, and it's always the guy who's the problem. And I think at this point, probably isn't the guys
yeah.
who are the problem. It's probably you. And it's
Yeah,
the
but
same for men and
also
women.
maybe guys are the problem, but why are you allowing that? Why don't you have healthy boundaries? You know? Then you
Sometimes,
will find that.
sometimes I honestly, from all the problems that I've seen, I mean, I've seen a lot of issues with between fathers and daughters, and the problems that the fathers create that they send in the world. Sometimes it's abuse, sometimes it's alienation, sometimes it's growing up without fathers.
Mhm.
And Chris Rock has a great thing. If your job is to create a great relationship and set her a good example of a good father. Otherwise, she's going to end up seeking attention from men.
Yeah.
She's going to end up working in different trades that are going to be bad for her just to get men's attention. And
Yeah.
so, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
But thank you very much, Vera, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Give us a plug one more time for your .com.
Vera Mahajan, VEERAMAHAJAN.com.
There you
It's
go.
my name. Yes.
In order the book wherever fine books are sold. You can find it wherever fine books are sold, on Amazon, all those different places. Unreported Domestic Abuses and Unreported Crime and Learning to Live Free is a journey. And Real important that we always identify abuse because, and give it to your friends too. If you have friends that
Yes.
have toxic things, help them
Pass
set
it on.
boundaries,
Yes.
pass it on. There you go.
And I have the book on audio too. If people don't want to read or can't read, it's on
Mhm.
audio also on
There you
Audible.
go. I love audiobooks.
Mhm.
Anyway, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks to everyone for being on and listening. And thanks for the commenters and the people engaged in the show. We certainly appreciate that as well. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss, goodreads.com/Chris Voss, all our places on LinkedIn, all those different places across the internet. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.